totally exonerated. We've heard that claim from Donald Trump, but this time it was the Democrats who were totally exonerated. This time it was by a unanimous vote of a jury in a criminal case. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So the big news the other day is that Michael Sussman, the Democratic lawyer who is accused of lying to the FBI and was charged in criminal court for it by John Durham, the special counsel appointed by William Barr at the behest of Donald Trump, was found not guilty by a unanimous vote of the jury. It was a quick verdict. Basically, the jury went back there, took a vote, and found that everybody thought he was not guilty, so they came back in. Attorneys can only hope for that kind of a quick verdict. But despite Republican claims that obviously the Democrats had somehow undermined this jury and that they'd allowed their political beliefs to guide them, the unanimous verdict really stands in stark contrast to that claim. Members of the jury who were interviewed made it clear that they thought that this case never should have been brought, that the evidence was so thin and the claims really were almost bizarre. The lie for which Michael Sussman was supposedly being prosecuted is that in September of 2016, after the investigation had already been launched against Donald Trump regarding the allegations of Russian interference in the election on his behalf, that Sussman, in an unrecorded interview with the FBI, didn't reveal the fact that he was a Democrat, something everybody knew. After spending $3.8 million of taxpayers' money, the special counsel John Durham has come up with nothing. You have to remember, Durham was appointed by Barr after Donald Trump demanded an investigation into what caused the investigation of him regarding the Russian interference in the election. The whole idea that the Russians might have helped him get elected, especially given the fact that he lost the popular vote in both elections, but in 2016 in particular, by a substantial margin, I might add, is something that really stuck in the craw of Donald Trump. And so he was adamant in arguing that this investigation into his connections with the Russians and their efforts to elect him were nothing more than a politically motivated witch hunt. Then, when Robert Mueller came out with his report, in which he made it clear that there were contacts between the Russians and the Trump campaign, and that the Russians made significant efforts to try to tilt the election in Trump's favor, actually delivering indictments against a whole host of Russian players, and actually convicting a couple of people, including Trump's campaign manager, for crying out loud, and reporting that Trump had likely violated the law regarding obstruction of justice, Trump claimed anyway that the report totally exonerated him, right? The problem is, that's not what it did. And the real witch hunt was Trump's effort to try to find some basis to argue that there was no basis for this investigation into him. Never mind the fact that if you'd been paying attention to actually what Trump was saying, you'd have to be an idiot not to think that there was some connection between him and the Russians. As one reporter accurately pointed out, Trump attacks everyone except white supremacists and the Russians. He even periodically attacks Fox News. So to think that there might be some connection between Donald Trump and the Russians did not require a great deal of insight. But Durham, who is appointed to the political role of basically raising questions and kind of creating some kind of credibility for Trump's claims, has done his job well, spending this money and creating all kinds of narratives out there that the right-wing media have just loved. Talking about FBI officials behaving badly, spying of Donald Trump's offices, and ultimately Hillary Clinton herself being involved in trying to get the Russians involved in the election, which I gotta say, didn't work out very well for her if that's the case. The problem, though, when you take something to court is you actually have to present evidence. And when that evidence was laid out, the jury and the judge weren't so convinced by what John Durham had supposedly found. It turned out that he was just another Trump conspiracy theorist, making all kinds of wild claims to try to soothe Trump's fragile ego and make Republicans believe that they still are the majority, despite all evidence to the contrary. So while at first I was very happy to hear about this verdict and thought almost immediately about how Clinton and Sussman had been totally exonerated, Thank you very much, Donald Trump. I did have to wonder, where are all the prosecutions against the perpetrators of the January 6th insurrection against our Capitol? We have seen some of the lower players who actually broke into the Capitol being prosecuted. But what about Mark Meadows, who was like the ringleader sitting in the White House, coordinating all these efforts to try to undermine the election? What about Ginny Thomas, the Supreme Court Justice's wife, who is desperately calling into Arizona trying to overturn the election? Or Attorney Cleta Mitchell, who was actually on the phone call when Donald Trump called Brad Raffensperger in Georgia asking him to find 38,000 more votes? What about John Eastman, the Colorado lawyer who put together the legal framework which would allow the Republicans to basically throw out the popular vote? And that's not to mention even Mo Brooks, Ted Cruz, or Donald Trump, or any number of other people who have not been held to account for the fact that they nearly destroyed American democracy a year and a half ago. It's about time that we as Democrats start actually prosecuting the real criminals in our midst, and that we stop being victimized by the false allegations that Republicans are coming up with in their desperate attempt to turn America into an authoritarian dystopia ruled by MAGA conspiracy theorists. Well, if you want to hear more about the danger that Republicans have posed to our democracy, check out this video over here where I talk about how close America came to a coup on January 6th. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.